Wes and I, we started using drugs at a very young age, and it was just smoking pot, and I was almost 13 and he was 13, and from there on it just, slowly digressed and got further and further. I stayed with drinking beer, smoking pot, and Wes kind of just started experimenting with everything. The night Wes had his accident, earlier that day I'd been trying to call him and couldn't get a hold of him. And he called me from his mother's house and said, "Will you come pick me up?" And I said, "Sure." On the way back, we smoked some weed all the way back, pretty much till we got to his front door. Walked in, the thing that night was we got to get some beer. It was April 20th, 420, the National Pot Smoking Day, and so we were out of pot, so had to get some beer. I noticed when I walked in a little .22 revolver. I'd seen it laying around before, but Wes was, he was acting himself, but he was just, it seemed like he was just looking for something else, some sort of, high that he couldn't get that night. I don't know what it was, but the piece that goes into the middle of the revolver, the cylinder of the gun, I had picked it up and I put it in my pocket, and I didn't know why I had put it in my pocket. I had no clue. But about an hour went on, and he was looking for that piece. He said, he had a safe, and he said, "I'm going to put it in the safe." He kept telling me, I'm like, "I don't know where it's at." I had no clue. And so I finally gave up and gave him the piece to the gun. And I sat back down on the love seat, and he was across from me on the couch. I was watching TV and briefly looked to my right side and just seen spark. I didn't even know what happened. No clue. It was kind of like when you hear a truck backfire, you know what I mean? And I ran to him, grabbed the gun, held him, told someone to call 911. Finally had gotten up, went to his dad. His dad was upstairs asleep while all this was going on, and told him to call 911. And what she did, I ran back, gave him a hug, and walked out of the house. I wasn't crying. I wasn't screaming. I was just like, I can't even explain it. And it was very, very difficult. Didn't know what to do, didn't know where to go. I walked behind his house, through a couple people's yard, to this, a guy that we know. I knocked on the door, and he seen that something was wrong with me, and I said, "Give me a cigarette. Give me a cigarette. Please give me a cigarette." And he said, "What's wrong?" And I couldn't even tell him. And he knew I was upset. He gave me a whole pack of cigarettes, and I walked out. I called a friend of mine to come pick me up. I left my car there, and he picked me up, and we went to his house. New Boston police, they called me on my cell phone and told me that they needed me to come in and talk to them about it. And, I refused and refused and refused, and it got to the point where the officer told me that if not, he was going to come get me himself and put me in handcuffs and take me down there. So I went back down there and gave him the interview, and ever since that night my life has dramatically changed.